Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Get Inspired and Live in Your Power. And super excited to have another amazing guest with me today. Her name is Tiffany Warren. And Tiffany is a homeschooling mother of five and has been married to her husband, Sterling, for 18 years. She is a small business owner in Utah, and she started her business in 2020 as a way to cope with the grief of losing her brother. And so, Tiffany, I'm not super familiar with that part of your story about the grief of losing your brother and how that kind of helped spark things. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Um, in 2020, I started out that year just from January 1st. I was going to school full time and I was working full time, and I was I just switched over to try to homeschool my kids at the same time. And I felt like there were so many things on my plate, but I felt like I was juggling it all. And I felt like I could just do everything as long as I worked hard enough and didn't sleep. And um, January 7th of 2020, my brother passed away. He is 18 months older than me. He was 36 when he passed. And it was very unexpected. He was diabetic and he couldn't afford his insulin. And so it was really, really hard. And I didn't know how I would keep juggling all these things on my plate while also going through the grief of um, burying my best friend. He was one of my closest friends in life. And so I decided to leave school, and I was in my last semester of business school over at UVU. And I decided that I was going to do something that I could do out of the home so I could be with my kids more, because it really changed my entire perspective on what I wanted in life. I felt like there were so many things that my brother stressed over in life that I don't think he would have stressed over if he realized he didn't have as much time left as he did. And so it really changed my entire perspective on what I wanted in life, what dreams I wanted, what was most important. And I felt like the most important thing was time with my family. And so shortly after that, in March of 2020, when the pandemic really started hitting everybody, my husband got laid off. He lost his job. And so I had um, a dream that um, we had a sign making company. And
Now,
just one
let
dream
me
that night.
just be clear because you said I had a dream, and at first I'm thinking, oh, she has this vision, this dream. You actually literally you were sleeping and you had a dream, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
I
Go.
literally had a dream, and it was so interesting because I had never done anything like that. I'm not the kind of person to go to craft parties. I'm not the kind of person to create. I didn't see myself as an artist or a creator, but I had a very, very vivid dream that we had a business. And in that dream, it was one of those dreams. I don't know if you've had these, but one of those dreams where it feels like it's like you're actually living it. Like when you wake up, you feel like you were actually there, and it was so tangible. And I could see our sign up on the side of a barn, and it said Country Family Home, and my husband was helping load packages into the back of a pickup truck. And I looked around and there was all this sign making stuff. And so I just felt very clear about it as soon as I woke up. And so I went immediately and went and asked my husband if we should look into this. And he's like, why not? Everything was kind of falling apart in our life at that point. And so we just we felt like we just had to go all in with whatever we could at that point.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing a little bit about that backstory. And, there's a lot of things that motivate people to go into business or to shift. Maybe they're working a 9 to 5 and they're like, this is not fulfilling. I, need to do something else or whatever. So whatever that motivation is, I really feel like that God guides us and we don't get to pick what the experiences are that are going to really push us to make that change in our lives. And, sadly, sometimes it is a death of a loved one or a divorce or, whatever. I mean, there's like so many things that can happen in our lives that really shake us up. It's almost like, we've been living in this snow globe and then all of a sudden the snow globe got turned upside down. And, in real life, we're looking at a snow globe.
Yes.
Oh, look how pretty the snow is coming down. And in real life, you're like, oh my gosh, my life is falling apart.
Yes.
Yeah, so we have to love those experiences, right? That help us to move forward. I want to just mention a couple things. First of all, you had no prior experience. It wasn't like you'd been wanting to start this craft business for years and you finally decided to go do it, or you've been crafty all your life or an artist or whatever. And it's like now finally you get to express it. Like
No.
nothing. And I remember from when I heard you speak that the vision that you saw was laser wood burning, right?
Yeah. And
You
I didn't even
never
know what a laser was.
you didn't even know what a razor
No,
was. Oh my gosh.
no. I researched sign making and it like Google brought up a laser and I was like, what's this? And so we looked into that and we ordered the laser the next day. We didn't even research. We just felt like that was what we were supposed to do. And so we jumped right in and we didn't question it. And we probably, any sound person would probably question it. My husband had just lost his job. We didn't have any idea what we were going to do if this didn't work out, but we knew that we both felt very strong that we needed to do this. And so we purchased the laser, and within about 7 weeks, we were so busy with orders that I ended up quitting my job. And we went
Wow,
all in with both of us working with our kids. We pulled our kids into it too. So all five of our kids work for us as well, just as a family business.
that's amazing. And really that is the key. I've said this over and over again, that when you receive inspiration, that if you will just be obedient to it and just act, do, go. I mean, you're right. Any sane person, like somebody that would think things through and what ifs, and this is kind of risky or whatever. If your husband just lost his job, you probably wouldn't invest in a big laser burner. I don't know how much they cost, but I'm sure that that's a pretty
Yeah,
piece of
we basically
machinery.
took all of our savings and just dumped it in, and we're just hope this works out.
Yeah, and you have, I mean, now hindsight, you get to look back and say, yeah, 7 weeks later, we were so busy, I got to quit my job,
Yeah.
and looking on the outside, it's like, oh yeah, it was so easy. It only took her 7 weeks. Well, you had no idea, you know.
No, and during that time, I was also, while I was filling orders for that 7 weeks, it was very hard. It was like I was still pulling my job. I was still working my 8 hour shift and then also filling orders. And so I wasn't sure if it was worth it during that 7 weeks. It just felt like I was so overwhelmed and I was still taking care of my kids and my husband was still going through just being a little bit down because he had just lost his job and the pandemic was hitting and we just didn't know what would happen. And so it is easy even for me to look back and say, "Oh, I'm so glad we did this." But in that moment, we had no idea. We had to just pray and trust.
A lot of faith. I have felt that from you, that you are a faith-filled woman. Okay, so I know that isn't the end of the story, because your husband lost his job, and then what happened?
And then it was about a year later that so we did the first year and we had really great Christmas season in 2020. Everybody was buying online, and so that's when we knew we could really have a sustainable business. April of 2021, my husband started getting really sick. They didn't know what was wrong. He had COVID, but they said it was like hitting his pituitary gland. They weren't sure. They sent us a specialist, and that summer he had no energy. He just did not feel good at all, and he started feeling good a little bit in September. And then October, he got hit with the Delta variant of COVID. So, COVID twice. And then that's when he ended up in the ICU, and the doctors told me they weren't sure if he was going to make it. So that was really hard because I had just lost my brother the previous year, and luckily he did make it, thank goodness. But it was really a struggle because he ended up being on oxygen for 4 months after that. He has struggled with long haulers for the past 2 years, and it's just been a new journey. And if we didn't have the company and he was going through all of this, I don't know what we would do. It would be impossible.
And I know we talked, even just chatted a little bit before we started this interview, and I know that the business has helped you financially, with your husband losing his job and not being able to work, and you quit your job, that it has supported you well. And we talked about there's another way that this has really helped, that a lot of times, when people experience situation after situation, circumstances that, are coming at you and you're just not really sure, if you can keep going, that a lot of times people will go inward. And I know, in my business as a breakthrough coach and as a life coach, I meet a lot of people who have kind of separated themselves from their support system because they believe that things just won't go their way, or that, they're not supported because whatever direction they turn, it seems like things just are falling apart. And a lot of times, sometimes situations like that can pull people together, families together, but a lot of times it pulls them apart. It separates them and they start looking to themselves to try to, just keep it together. But with you, with the business, and just knowing, that it definitely was inspired of God through this dream, that it really has been kind of the glue that has helped. It's something that everybody can kind of hang on to and come together for. Do you want to talk a little bit?
Yeah.
I know I shared like all what I see, but you
No,
tell.
yeah. It's really interesting because right after my brother passed, I did go inward. I was so angry with the Lord. I was so angry in general. I hated that I couldn't say goodbye to him, like, just all those emotions of grief. And it it almost just saved our family by having my husband lose his job and then having that dream and starting this business together, because it gave me something to distract me, I think. And then it gave me something that I had to work with my kids on. I had to work with my husband on. And so it gave us a common purpose. And then we also created a dream. Like we have this dream of living on a farmhouse someday with our cows, and it's just really given us something to work towards as a family. And so we're able to work alongside each other, and we feel so much more closeness now. But it took us going through that fire of grief and through my husband losing his job and all the down times that we've faced. We found that every single time we come out of one of these, my kids call them adventures instead of trials, but one of these adventures, we end up so much closer together because we find ways to pull closer together and we find a common purpose. I feel like our family didn't hold together as tight through some of the rocky times, and so I just pull from that strength. I look at ways that we can hold close together and search for answers through prayer. I think that's the biggest thing that I do, and I don't know. I just trust and jump into it.
I love that. And you get to be a chain breaker. You get to be a pattern interrupt, for your family, and to now pull together. And I can definitely see that. I got to meet your daughter at the event and she spoke with you, which was amazing. How old is she? Like 12 or 13?
She's 13.
13.
Yes.
And she did amazing. Oh my gosh. She was like this
Oh,
super confident girl on stage. It was amazing.
well, and that's another thing is it's given my kids so much purpose. I feel like the year before the pandemic is when we started homeschooling because I had just, just this strong, overwhelming feeling like I needed to pull them from school, that I needed to at that time. But then I was trying to juggle so many things that I was kind of doing the bare minimum as a homeschool mom for them.
Hey, we're back. Tiffany had some internet issues, and so she's now in her car, had to drive to a new location.
Yeah, I feel like this business, at first, I felt like it was my way of distracting myself from the grief. And I felt like it was the Lord's answer to my prayers. But as we started really building the business and the kids started having more tasks and they started helping with it, we started seeing that it was really integrated with their homeschooling, that we had something that could connect our entire family and it helps them with their goals. And I've seen my daughter just go from being really sad when her uncle passed away and really sad when the pandemic hit and she couldn't see her friends, but she had this business to grow in and thrive in, and she has just gained so much confidence from it, just from seeing. I I think back in 2020, she could never have stood up in front of all of those women at an event and given a speech on a business topic like that. But because of me following a prompting that I originally had and my husband following that prompting, it has given our kids so much power. And so I think that's just important for us to remember that when we follow promptings that we have, it doesn't just affect us, it can affect others in a very deep way. It could affect our whole life. So,
Well, that's amazing. And I appreciate you saying that because I know that there are a lot of mothers out there, especially maybe some dads too, but especially mothers who have this desire inside of them. Like they know that they should be doing something, but they maybe stop themselves because they're like, oh, I'm a mom. I need to raise my kids first, and then I can go out and do the things that I want to do. But your story is confirmation that if you're being inspired to do something, go do it. And it's going to elevate, it's going to strengthen your family, your kids will learn from it. I know I started my first job when I was, or my first business when I was 13, but
wow.
my first business as an adult, I was actually pregnant with my first baby, and all of my kids were born while I was running that business. And same thing, they learned how to goal set. They learned to respect when I was on the phone and, when I needed to be working. And my husband, came together with that as well. And so he actually knew just as easily, just as well how to put the kids to bed, what they like to eat, those kinds of things. Because he was involved too, because I was
Yeah.
working. I was, my business was based in the home. And so I was mostly in the home, but a lot of times I wasn't available because I was on the phone with someone. So I think that it's an amazing thing to have a business in the home so your kids can actually learn. Think of homeschooling like compared to public school. Homeschooling, if you can expose your kids to how to make money, how
Yeah.
to be dedicated, how to follow inspiration, how to, get on social media so you can promote a product or whatever. Wow, that is so much better as far as life lessons and, what they can accomplish when they're past, school age. It's
Yeah. Well,
amazing.
and I feel like it gives them something tangible to connect money to. So money just doesn't just float in and float out. Like sometimes my kids, they'll say, oh, I want this for dinner. And then they'll look at the prices of it and they're like, that's like two signs that we would sell. And so it's just interesting how they connect that to real work. They know how much work it takes to create those signs, and then they know how much that trade is. So it's like trades of goods instead of just that money flowing in and out. It makes it real intangible for them.
That's so cool. I mean, I won't go there, but I know there's a lot that could be said about that,
Yeah.
about, helping people understand the value of money and what it takes, the sacrifices, the hours, the time,
Yeah.
everything that it takes to actually bring that money in. And there's plenty of money out there, we just need to be creative on how to bring it into our homes. And you're really good at that. Your story's been super inspiring. I want to share a little bit about how people can find you online because you have a really cool site. You've got some really awesome things. I've been there and shopped around a little bit.
Thank you.
The name, let's see, your website is Country Family Home. And by the way, I haven't said this, but that name is like so inspired. I know it's inspired because
It does.
it's not just country family home. It's country, which totally describes the things that you do, the products that you have on your website.
Yeah.
Family, which you've been, so good at sharing how the family is part of this project. And then home. I mean, everything that you do is about your home and about, carrying that forward into other people's homes with your products. That feeling of togetherness and strength and yeah,
Yeah.
camaraderie, everything.
Well, with family, if I could just go back just a little bit with
Yeah.
what you mentioned about your husband and how he took on different roles, that's something that has also been just amazing for me to see that my husband and I have so much more of a partnership than
Mm.
separate roles now. It's like we homeschool together, we run this business together, we parent together, everything is together. And so then when we go through more hardships, to we have that togetherness, we have that connection that just molds us even closer together than we ever were before all of this happened.
That is
So I don't
so
know if you felt
awesome.
that too, but
Yes, thank you so much for sharing that. I just think that's just more confirmation that if you're feeling inspired to do something, just go for it because, inspiration, I really believe that if you're inspired, then it's all going to turn out good. It'll
yeah,
be way better than you could have ever imagined. So it's
definitely.
awesome. Also, you have given me a discount code, 30% off at countryfamilyhome.com by using the code live in your power. Now you sent it to me all in caps. Do they have to do it all caps or does it matter?
No, they can just do it. Live in your power, either lowercase or caps is
Okay,
fine.
so no spaces, live in your power. That'll give you 30% off. And then if you want to reach out to Tiffany in person, because if you just felt really touched by her story or whatever, she's allowed me to give her email address, support@countryfamilyhome.com. And yeah, so you're definitely going to want to check her website out and feel free to reach out to her. Just to kind of finish up, Tiffany, I would just love to get one piece of advice that you could give to our listeners who have maybe felt like they're just going through the motions in life and haven't really felt inspired, but they really want to start living in their power. What would be a piece of advice that you could give them?
My advice would be to not second guess yourself. If you have a thought or if you have just this tug at your heart that you are supposed to be doing something, don't second guess it. Go all in. If you feel like that's going to lead to your dreams and it aligns with what you want in life, then what do you have to risk, really? I mean, if the risk is so much more if you don't follow that, then if I feel like if I hadn't have done what I did, if I hadn't have bought the laser the next day, if I hadn't have listened to the spirit and done exactly what I felt like I needed to do, that my life would be in such a different place right now. And I don't even know if my family would feel as close because I probably would have just kept spiraling in my own grief at the time. So I hope that makes sense. I just want to make sure that, if you have a feeling like you need to do something, then do it. Don't question it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tiffany. I'm just getting emotional thinking about it because you're so right. I loved what you said that the greatest risk would be not following through. It really is true that the only way that we have complete security and confidence and can just feel like everything's going to work out is when we do follow that inspiration, when we know it's coming straight from God. That's the only way that we have 100% confidence that everything is going to work out. So thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you going to that extra effort to make sure that we finished this. I was like,
Well, I appreciate it.
yeah, it's like, this is too good. We can't start over.
Oh, I know.
We're
I
gonna
told
have
my
to.
husband, I was like, for some reason, this always happens when I try to share my story. So
No,
just
it was
have to be
totally
more
amazing.
determined to get it out there.
Totally amazing. So thank you so much. And thank
Thank
you,
you.
listeners, for being here. And we'll look forward to another episode and another amazing guest on Get Inspired and Live in Your Power.
Thank you so much.